Hi, I'm Spencer Schubert, a sculptor based in Kansas City. We're trying something new. We're actually opening the doors of the studio and allowing you in so that you can watch how I take this lump of clay and a whole bunch of lumps of clay like it and create a finished sculpture. And to keep things interesting, we're actually going to give away the sculpture that I'm making at the end of the video series, so you could win the thing that you're watching me make. The contest details are below in the description, so stay tuned and follow along and watch this whole process happen in real time. No spoilers, but it's actually going to be an extremely well-dressed, extra large, and definitely not human sculpture. Hey, I'm Spencer, and this is E.S.Schubert Sculpture Studios. What is a studio? What is a sculpture studio? It's basically a workshop. This is my workshop. I've built it over the last, more than 2 decades. I've been making big bronze monuments and little bronze monuments using all of the tools and equipment and stuff in here. Every time somebody walks in here, they look around and go, whoa, what is this place? I wouldn't have imagined it existed. So this is just like us letting you inside the door so that you can see how weird and awesome it is to make big bronze monuments and to make little bronze monuments. I have a degree in sculpture, but I didn't really learn how to sculpt the figure or to sculpt a likeness in school. And the reason is, like most hard things worth doing, that's something you just need to sit down in a chair for hours and hours and hours and learn how to do. It was just interesting enough to me, and I was just good enough at it, that I kept sitting in the chair and trying to get better. I don't know about you, but like the thing that I can just sit down and do and get lost in is the thing I want to do more of. This is the first time I've ever sculpted on camera like this, as far as I know. Hot clay, the first ingredient. You know what's funny is, as many times as I have started and finished sculptures, I don't really know how. Like, that's the truth about creation, is that you don't just start, right? There's no knowing, there's only doing. There's stuff I repeat, but gosh dang it, I don't know. I don't know how we're gonna do this. How in the world is this gonna become something cool? All right, so right now, I'm just throwing clay on here, right? And I've already set the footprint, right? We want the base to be this, no bigger than this. And then I'm going to set the height too. And so I know I want it to be about 16 inches tall. You might be saying, hey, you're making a gigantic sculpture. Why are you starting with a small one? And so this is the size that I like to sculpt at. I've got these big old sausage fingers, and so I don't want to sculpt any smaller than that. And, but at the same time, sculpting bigger is just going to make it harder to fix mistakes. And there are going to be mistakes, right? There's going to be things that I'm going to get close to finished, and then I'm going to be like, no, I want to do that all over again. And it's just easier to do that at this size. And you know, one of the fun things about making these busts is how much of the clothing is really fun. I mean, it's fun to make an animal look like a human. You know, it's fun to anthropomorphize. That's a fun word to say. Anthropomorphize animals. But gosh dang it, I love sculpting clothing. One of the most interesting parts of making sculptures is not necessarily the face, but the drapery and the clothing. And like sometimes the way a shirt or a pair of pants folds across a body part is so interesting. And in fact, I've realized I've sculpted a lot of historical figures. And over the time, I realized that the Victorian era of clothing was just so amazing. My wife and I at one point were thinking, like, how can we get me sculpting more of that kind of clothing? And she was like, what would be awesome is if you sculpted a bunny wearing a top hat and a 3-piece suit. And so I did that. Like one day I just started sculpting it, and I showed her this, you know, this picture I had taken of the work I had done that day of the bunny in the top hat. And we were like, oh my gosh, you could do this, you could do that. We go, oh, it could be a raccoon with a beret, you know, it could be a fox wearing pearls, all these things. You know you're on the right track when the ideas start pouring out of you. And so it was just kind of a fun thing that we did and kept doing. Yeah, I don't know, it's a weird thing about Victorian era clothing and animal heads. They seem to go really well together. Okay, so here we go. So I wanted to make this explorer. I had this idea that I should do this like Victorian era explorer. And so I went on Pinterest and I tried to find photos, but there's not a lot of photos of those dudes. Interesting, there weren't a lot of cameras. And so I had ChatGPT generate a photo of a Victorian era explorer for me, and this is what I'm gonna use this as inspiration for his clothing. And so what does that mean, inspiration? I mean, there's elements of it that I really like that I'm gonna try to use, but nothing ever matches the vision in your mind when you pull it out of your mind and put it into the real world. So it's gonna be a little different, but it's gonna be definitely inspired by that. Like I love the collar, how it kind of pops, and I love the cravat, how just, you know, just fiddly. Like who gets dressed up like that to go climb a mountain? Lewis and Clark dressed like that when they were freaking walking up the Missouri River. Can you imagine dragging a canoe through brambles in a three-piece suit? It's so stupid. I have been making things since the day I could use my thumbs. It is my favorite thing to do. If there was no such thing as sculpture, I'd be a carpenter or a freaking toilet repairman or something. I want to do something. I want to fix. I want to look at this system. I want to figure out why the system isn't working. I want to figure out how the system was supposed to work. I want to figure out why it wasn't working, and then I want to fix it. And like in this, it's like this. It's the same problem solving. It's just the problem is as yet undefined or just made up in my head. Like, how do you make a lump of clay look like a specific animal wearing a Victorian explorer's outfit? That's a problem we're going to solve as we're doing this. I always wondered this about sketching, right? I'm not very good at drawing. I never really liked drawing. I'm a three-dimensional guy. If it's in the world and I can manipulate it with my hands, then like I feel like I'm good at it. But I've never been good at taking the real world and turning it into a flat thing, right? But I've always thought it was awesome how a person can start a sketch and it's really rough and loose, and then over the course of hours it turns into like this beautifully finished drawing. I'm like, where did those original marks go that you made that aren't there anymore? Like, how did you turn that sketch into that finished thing? And I guess I do know how to do it in clay, which is just start doing it. And so I'll just start, like I think, oh, okay, I want to do this collar right here. I need to roll out a flat slab and then kind of start getting it shaped. And then I just keep changing it and cutting it off and adding more in until I'm like, okay, cool, that's good, you know? And so I guess that's how they do it with the drawing, but I don't know, man. It seems like freaking magic to me. Okay, we're going to leave it there for today. I went a little overboard on the head, so I covered it up with the cloth. You know, when I'm working, I don't know what I'm going to work on. I'm just kind of looking at what needs to be done. And so sometimes I go pretty far down the road. But I wanted to cover that up so you guys have to come back next week to see it. Because remember, we're going to give this away. We're not going to give this away. We're going to give the big one away. This is one of the small ones, right? And so you have to come back to see where we land with this guy and also to see how you can have him in your living room. So thanks a bunch. I really appreciate you watching, if you're still watching. Of course, if you're not still watching, you wouldn't hear this thank you. So thank you, and I'll see you next time.